Katie, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today. I already know that this is going to be such a good conversation. So, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Angela. I'm looking forward to the conversation too.
Yeah, here on the podcast, we have a holistic view of what it takes to, nurture yourself as a mom, as an entrepreneur, and all of those things that are a part of that. And I think that's something that often gets neglected in the midst of our business goals and taking care of our children is our relationships with our partners. And that's where you come in. You've been a therapist, a licensed therapist for 15 years, and you
Mhm.
help kids and couples and individuals create those relationships of our dreams, which I don't even think we've been taught, or many of us haven't been modeled like what that really is and what that looks like. So, can you tell us how your lived experience with grief and burnout
Mhm.
has helped you focus on particularly, high achievers and families start to improve their relationships?
Yeah, definitely. So, a little bit about me. I grew up as a military kid. So moving every 2 to 3 years, and went to college thinking I was going to do physics pre-med, and then realized these are not my people. They're not social enough. So went into psychology and felt like a natural fit. I'd spent my whole life adapting to people, learning about people, right? Being the new kid, paying attention to how people talked about things or what they did so that I could kind of understand the community. And here I was studying why people do what they do, why they think what they think. And I was like, oh, I already got that figured out, right? Like this is an easy A. But as I dove into it, I realized I really enjoy this.
Mm.
And so fast forward, end up becoming a marriage and family therapist and get licensed in the States. And in that time, I meet my German husband in the States, fall in love. But he was very clear from the beginning, Katie, I want to have a family in Germany. Like States is great. I love it here, but I really want to raise my family in my home country. Well, I was a military kid, so yeah, I'll move. Of course, I'm used to moving. We lived in Germany when I was a kid. I can do that. Totally. And so I got pregnant with our first. I sold my private practice so I could be a stay-at-home mom. And then we decided we were pregnant with our second to move to Germany. So we moved here about 9 years ago. And in the time we've been here, in those 9 years, I have lost my mom unexpectedly, both of my grandfathers unexpectedly. Um, we have had two miscarriages. We have three girls now. Um, and I hit some pretty heavy burnout through the phase of losing my mom and the miscarriages, and also being a high achiever, thinking I can just do it all while grieving. And that journey kind of came to a halt when the pandemic hit and we were all stuck inside.
Mm.
And I had to face all of the stuff I had been feeling and thinking. And I've always been an avid journaler. So I had been journaling the whole process of what I was going through. And I started sharing some of what I was journaling with a friend. And she was like, Katie, there's a book here. I was like, I don't know. And she's like, no, there's a book here. So I started writing really more and more of my take on grief
Mm.
because I think as moms, we know grief actually really well
Yeah.
as our kids get older, but also that parenthood isn't what we thought it would be.
Mm.
And wow, our partner is or isn't what we thought they would be, and all of it, right? And then I thought back to my parents' divorce when I was a teenager and realized, oh, I had a lot of grief still because of that. Moving every 2 to 3 years, I had a lot of grief in that too. And so I started understanding that grief was actually a very normal, natural process in life, but we'd only been taught about it in
Mm.
reference to death. When someone dies, there is grief. And it was like, yeah, but actually, the process of letting go of the way we thought life would or should go with a person there or not, or in a place that we thought we'd be or not, or how we would be or not, is really what it's all about.
Mm.
And so I wrote my book, The New Face of Grief. In all of that phase, had a third baby as well, our third, I guess, a double rainbow child. And I really started to grasp that high achievers especially struggle with the feeling of grief. We don't like it. We want to avoid it. We will do everything on the calendar but grieve. And yet, when we actually work on our grief, when we work on the things that matter to us, we achieve it. We get it done. Because we're going to do the homework, we're going to do the steps, we'll do the things, but we have to get over our own hurdle. And in that phase, as I got closer to my 40s, I went into the natural time of starting to question my relationship, which we all go through this phase. And it can happen 7 to 10 years in. They always say the 7 to 10 year itch.
Mhm.
It can happen a little bit later, but it's this natural time of, am I really happy? Is this what I really want? Is this how I've envisioned my life to be? And we're not really taught how to talk about the vision of a relationship
Mhm.
other than we get married, we have kids, we have a house, that, but not the relationship. And I had to go on my own walk with my husband of what is this new phase of our life going to look like? Because I think often I like to describe it like the new iPhone, right? Or the new whatever technology is going to be out there. That it's not that the one before it was broken, it's that we've learned more. There's an upgrade, there's more wisdom that has been gained to improve things, make things faster, have things be different. And that's how a marriage is. So when we say things like, you're not the person I married, or, this marriage is different, of course, I would hope so, right? I would hope that a marriage, you know, 10, 15, 20 years ago is different now. And I would hope the people in it are different now. Because I don't know about you, but when I was 10 years old versus 20 years old, there was a big difference. So why would I expect a marriage from day one to 10 years later to be exactly the same and the same people involved in it? So when I started to understand questioning was normal and it was actually more of a sign of it's time to rebuild and upgrade, create something
Mhm.
new, not upgrade to a new partner because I'm sorry, you're going to bring your stuff to any relationship you're in and you will have problems there too. But to upgrade what we had. And to do that, you have to tear down the old, which involves grief as well and letting go and realizing, wow, that dream never came to fruition. Maybe it's for a fertility journey. Maybe it's where you live and where you thought you
Mhm.
would be. Maybe it's who you thought would be in your life, or what parenthood would be, or even what you thought marriage would be like. Maybe it's your partner going through burnout or you going through burnout. How do you stand with somebody or walk beside them on that journey when you're just exhausted too?
Mhm.
Maybe you're in the journey of taking care of your parents
Mhm.
and your kids. And if you're in perimenopause, you're also feeling like a hormonal surge, just like your teenager or preteen, right? Like it's a difficult time of life when we get to that point where we've been together for 10 plus years.
Mhm.
And it's also a time for reevaluation. And
Mhm.
so that's how it came to fruition was just grief and rebuilding our relationships to be the way we actually envision them to be. Like,
Mhm.
I think that's an essential life skill we all need to learn, but we
Mhm.
were definitely not taught this.
Yeah, we were definitely not taught so many things that you just talked about. Like you said, we're only taught about grief in this one-dimensional kind of way and not maybe the death of expectations or
Yeah.
hopes and dreams, and the fact that you can move past that and change them and rebuild
Yeah.
something else and create new. Yeah, I think, and as somebody who also unexpectedly lost my mom more than a decade ago, in the midst of being pregnant, and,
Mm.
that is a thing. That is,
Yes.
and as motherhood, we're only taught to look at it as this joyous thing, and then we beat ourselves up because we're not
Yeah.
feeling that, whether we're going through grief or whatnot, because it's not how we thought it would be. Or maybe our children aren't how we thought they would be. You know,
Right.
they because who expects your children to be anything other than perfect when, for
Yeah.
9 months you're just like imagining how they will be. But I think so many people don't even realize that they're in. one of those phases where they're just kind of numb. They're going through the motions. So, what are maybe some of the signs that people are in that survival mode that
Hmm.
are like, great, I'm glad, Katie, you went through all those things and you had this realization, but that's not me. But maybe they really are just going through the motions and maybe need to take that band-aid off.
Oh, definitely. I call it autopilot. When you're on
Mhm.
autopilot in your relationship, which means you're taking your partner for granted and you're being taken for granted. There's very little appreciation beyond like, oh yeah, thanks, and not real connection.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and obviously, and there's also like the physical intimacy. When you start to see that start to like feel more like roommates and like we kind of connect, and usually it's more because of one of us than the other. That's a good sign of like, whoa, something's not right. And I mean, I think honestly, most women start to ask questions internally, and we just feel guilt and shame about saying that we did. Like, I could just fly to Costa Rica. I don't know if they'd really miss me. I mean, I know they'd miss me, but like, I could do that, right? Or like, oh, he's cute. I bet, like, it would be different with him. These are all sort of signs that we're in this place of like, oh, something's not right. I'm not getting fulfillment the way I want to. And it's just, yeah, whether it be the relationship, family, or ourselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
Often it's how we're treating ourselves. And then we expect our partner to show us more respect or our kids to listen to us better,
Mm-hmm.
but we're not doing those things for ourselves. We're not
Mm-hmm.
modeling it at all.
Right.
So then it's kind of like, I would say those would be the signs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think those are really great points. And, I don't know if you want to talk about like, too, how do we know what the relationship of our dreams is? Like, what
Mm.
does that look like? Because I don't think, like I said before, a lot of us have been modeled. Like, how should we feel?
Yeah.
I
Well,
think a
that's
lot
the
of people think
key.
it's normal to feel the way you just described. Like at
Yes.
some
Yeah.
point, that's just how it is.
Right. Like marriage is hard work. So
Right.
you just, suck it up and move on kind of thing. The way that I have people really create a relationship vision is the same way you do with business, right?
Mhm.
If you want to get creative with it, you create a vision board of what you would want your relationship to look like 5 years from now, 10 years
Mhm.
from now. Is the couple dancing together? Are they, holding hands? Are you at a beach? Are you taking cool vacations? Are you like trying new foods? Are you cuddling on the couch? Like, what is it that you want it to look like? And then from there, you start to kind of reverse engineer that, right? Like, here's that
Mhm.
vision, just like when we business plan, like, okay, here are
Mhm.
my goals for the year, and here's how I'm going to get there.
Mhm.
And typically, I have the couples I work with quarterly, they check in with each other. Like, I literally have a call where we all get together, and quarterly, I'm like, here's your progress report card. Fill it out on a scale of 1 to 10. Where are you? Here, here, here. What are the things you want to work on? But yearly, at least, we should be coming together and going, what do we want this next year to look like? What are our goals? And the best way to do this, I have this couples goal setting workbook where I guide people to this is if somebody took a picture of the two of you today, and you looked at that picture as an outsider, how would you describe the couple that you saw? It might be like, well, they're smiling, but man, they're arguing all the time and like they can't really stand to be with each other, or they're more like roommates and, but they're functional. They're really good at getting stuff done, but he can't remember their anniversary date and she's feels resentment over XYZ, right? Like you would say that's what's in the picture. And then you go, okay, well, if a year from now it could be totally different and that picture look a certain way, what would you want? And that gives you that vision, right?
Mhm.
This is what I wanted. And once you start practicing that, just like you do in your business or for your own personal goals, your health goals, whatever it might be, then you start to go, ooh, I can imagine now 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, what I want it to look like. But because we're afraid to do that, they'll never change. He'll always be this way. And
Mhm.
he's thinking she's always gonna nag me about these things. That's never gonna change. It will always be this way. We stop. doing that because it gives us false hope, right? Like, oh, it could get better. No, I want to stop hurting myself. So I'm just going to see it as it is. But if we're not coming together and having these types of conversations, not about, hey, you're failing, you suck at this, you're not enough, but like, hey, where do we see ourselves traveling to in 5 years?
Mm-hmm.
And are we laughing together when we're there? What are we talking about? Right? Like paint the picture of it. That's a
Mm-hmm.
very different conversation from like, you never tell me how you feel, right? Or like, you don't have sex with me anymore. Okay, great. Problem. Awesome. But what about where do we want to be? Once we start doing that, I think a lot of people start to go like, oh, okay. So then we would need to change this and we would need to adjust here. And I would need to let go of my resentment that I have built up. And you would need to maybe change some habits, that autopilot mode that we go into. And it really creates a very clear roadmap for
Mm-hmm.
couples once they do that. So start with that. If somebody took a picture of you guys today, how would you describe the couple in the picture? And where a year from now would you like that couple to be?
Mm-hmm.
And then that gives you the starting point of, okay, here's the work we've got to do.
Mm-hmm.
I think of it a lot like, people are always into dieting and weight loss and all of these things, but there's just a point where it's like, I just want to be healthy, right? Like I want to build muscle. I want my cardio to be a certain level. And it's like, okay, well, what are the things you need to do?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you got eventually have to put on tennis shoes and like sport gear and like go do that thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same in relationship. Like practical relationship skills are about, okay, let's put on our relationship skills hat and be like, okay, we need to work on how we argue.
Mm.
I need to stop leaving the room. I need to stop rolling my eyes. I need to stop fixing this, right? Like whatever it is, right? And then, okay, how do I work on that? Okay, one, I need to slow things down. Two, let's get out a piece of paper and pen so we can like jot down what's really happening in the like there's so many different tools out there.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to be willing to say, I'm part of the problem too,
Mm. Yeah.
right? And go
Yeah.
like, okay, I have to work on this. And one of the goals my husband and I have for this year, which is one of our like what we want for the end of the year, is to start taking ownership and stop getting defensive every time. And I
Mm.
will tell you, the ownership doesn't happen right away. It happens about 30 to 45 minutes later, which is way better than it used to be, which was like hours or a day later. And as much as in that moment I'm so pissed off, like, why can't you just take ownership right now that you just said that thing and it's so mean and like, then I'll take ownership because you've taken ownership. It still happens about 30 to 45 minutes later. And I'm like, okay, that's progress.
Mm.
So you start to do the goals, understanding that growth takes time
Yeah.
and that it will not look like a 180, day
Mm-hmm.
1, day 5, day 30, but
Mm-hmm.
anything is better than what it was.
Right. And, 10 years down the road, and you alluded to this, now my husband and I are married 20 years. I think people have this expectation that year one is going to look like year 20, and you
Yeah.
just don't know how it's going to be until you're in it. It's like, and your
Yeah.
kids are whatever ages, because your children definitely, affect your relationship and what's going on. And I love the ownership. It's so important. Like we definitely have this role in wherever we are at in our relationships. Like we're part of that.
Mhm.
I think it's so important. But if somebody, like I heard on the radio last week, somebody seeking advice on how to start a conversation with their spouse after weeks of silence. Like
Oh,
I
yeah.
can't imagine.
Oh, yeah.
So if there is somebody who's listening and they are just really feeling emotionally disconnected, they're like,
Yep.
yeah, Katie, I would love to do those things, but I'm just feeling really disconnected at this point. Like, I don't even know
Yeah.
where to start. What are some ways that we can start to rekindle that connectedness?
So let's say this was the person saying, like, we haven't talked for
Oh
weeks.
gosh, I
And
can't
like, how do
imagine.
we literally, this is the pattern stopper because you have to think of like habit stops and like pattern
Mm,
stoppers. I would find myself a piece of white cloth or white paper and cut out a flag and like tape it to something, a stick, bob stick or whatever, and then kind of army crawl down the floor and waving it and be like, can we call a truce? Just to make them laugh and to
Right.
change the mood,
Right.
right? To just be like, this is not working. And to stop the whole mindset of they need to be the first to do it.
Mm.
Like that mindset I think is very destructive for women, along with why is it always me?
Mm.
And I get it. I'm there too. But what I realized is if I got out of my own way with that, I actually get to model for my husband and teach him things that I like and that I want versus like watch this, read this book, listen to this thing, figure it out for yourself. It's like, no, actually, this is really smart because now I get to model it the way like no, this is how it's taught. This is how you should do this. So for connection, if you haven't had connection in a while and you haven't been able to communicate, it is sitting down. And I think the best way to break the silence with that, do something funny, that pattern stopper, but
Mhm.
also to just start with taking ownership and to say, my pride gets in the way a lot with us, and I get really reactive. And I'm realizing when you say particular things, um, I start avoiding you or whatever, we're just playing out a scenario,
Mm.
but like, I start avoiding you because it's just easier. And I remember watching my parents do this, or I remember as a kid, it just was easier for me to avoid than to get in trouble. And I want to stop that pattern. And I realize it's not your responsibility to help me do that, but I just wanted to say that out loud. And then if there's no response, it's okay, you've planted seeds,
Mm.
right?
Mhm.
But I think if we go into it instead of like, you did this and this is why, but really, I've done self-reflection and I understand how I argue is mean, right? Or how I am like, that's got to be annoying to you. Our partners, like, defenses will drop because it's like, wait, what? You're not blaming me for this? I'm not the problem. Like this is a thing. And if
Mhm.
you've got a couple that one is more anxious attachment and one is more avoidant attachment, then that's great discussion too. When you pull away, I get overly pushy and overly anxious, and I just poke everything at you to see if you'll have a reaction. So I know that you still care about me, but that's not fair to you. You're just asking for some respect and some distance,
Mhm.
right? Like these aren't the way we think, which is okay.
Mhm.
But I want you to think about in childhood, we learned ways to react to things we didn't like, getting in trouble, you know, um, feeling alone. So like
Mhm.
we did all the just different things where we were like, man, I really wish I had had more support. I really wish my parents had been there more, or my siblings had left me alone, or whatever. We had these
Mhm.
situations, and we learned how to adapt, survive and to
Mhm.
get through our childhood. Even if we had great childhoods, we all have our unfinished business. But we carried those ways to adapt into adulthood and into our marriage and relationships, and they become maladaptive.
Mhm.
So, for example, I had a man tell me once, I really wanted tickets to a particular rock concert when I was 12. And my parents laughed at me and were like, you are too young to go to this. And he's like, so that's my unfinished business. And I said, tell me about these tickets. So he starts telling me, like, I love this band. And like my parents, they just wouldn't take me seriously. Bam, there it is. So when your wife doesn't take you seriously, and he was like, what? And I said, or your kids, when people don't listen to you, when they don't respect you, what happens? And so I said, what happened with the tickets? Well, I just got pissed off and I like did my own thing. And so he's avoidant attachment. He'd pull away when people didn't respect him, when
Mhm.
people didn't, really see him for who he was and listen to what he wants. He just pulls away. He gets a bit defensive, reactive, and pulls away. And so, what we have to do is to recognize that there's a wise adult in all of us because we've grown, we've matured, we've learned. But in our marriage, this maladaptive kid takes the wheel of our car and starts driving. And I don't know about you, but like no 9-year-old needs to be driving a car. This is just not how it works. It's not safe. And we want to be like, get back in the back seat. You don't need to drive anymore. But the only way to do that is you've got to figure out what age is the kid trying to drive the car and why are they doing it. And
Mhm.
once you figure that out, you start to show them hey, if we just take a deep breath before we say that thing we want to say, or before we huff or roll our eyes or whatever, or if we did roll our eyes because that 13-year-old comes out in us, we go, oh my God, I'm so sorry, I just rolled my eyes. You tell that 13-year-old to get back in the back of the car because the grown woman right here can do this. She's capable. I don't need you driving the car. We're gonna wreck it. I'm here. And I was talking with a client yesterday, and she's like, my 7-year-old's doing donuts in the yard. I'm not getting anywhere. I'm people pleasing, people pleasing, people pleasing, and I'm not getting anywhere. I was like, yeah, can she stop driving? Because you're at least gonna like get to the next road. Like you're gonna move yourself on the journey. So think of it in those three compartments. We have this inner child that has a wound, a hurt, something from our childhood that plays out. Then we became adapted to it, right? But then it became maladaptive now. And that's the kid that likes to take the steering wheel when we argue, when we're hurt, when we feel like our partner doesn't care, when they're on the phone and we're like, I don't matter to you.
Mm.
But the wise adult, who is us, who's mature, who's gone through life, who could coach their friend through it,
Hmm.
but can't do it for themselves, that person needs to come out. But she has to take a really big, deep breath, check the little kid in the front seat and go back to the back, and then approach things. And
Hmm.
that wise adult is able to say, I got really reactive. I blew up at you. I shut you out. I iced you over. Like, this isn't what I want. This isn't the legacy of the marriage I want to have. I don't want our kids to see this. I don't
Yeah.
want our neighbors to hear it. Like, I realize I've got to make some changes. And, I would say about 75% of the time, your partner will come with, yeah, I've been thinking about that too, some things about themselves, or like it may take them some time, but they'll come back with, I'm realizing this too. And this is only if you don't have a narcissist or somebody who's entitled that you're married to,
Mm.
or an addict, because as
Yeah.
they as well are going to struggle. But if you've just got somebody who hearing you be self-reflective is inspiration for them to be self-reflective, then
Hmm.
they're going to come to you at some point and go, yeah, I realized when you did that, I react this way.
Yeah.
And I really need to work on that. So that would be my tip is like take ownership and recognize who's driving the car when you're upset or
Yeah.
hurt, what's going on there.
Yeah. And at the heart of everything you just talked about is ultimately communication and how we
Yeah.
communicate with one another. And when we're focused on our business and we might have a partner who's also an entrepreneur and got their career and maybe an overachiever, probably. If you're an overachiever, you're probably married to one.
Yep.
And then you have the kids' schedules and all the other things. And I see so many couples that don't communicate well, or they text each other all the time,
Yeah.
or I just like stop the texting, like have actual conversations.
Yes.
Um, but do you have any advice for ways that we can better communicate, or what are some of the biggest communication obstacles that you kind of see too?
Oh, yeah. Let's start with that. So, one of the
Yeah.
biggest obstacles I find is personality differences that we
Mm.
just think is the person just being mean or unable to support us in ways we need. The biggest one is a thinker versus a feeler, right? If we look at Myers-Briggs, the thinker is the logical, like they answer your pain and emotions with the logical reason why that you shouldn't feel that way. Well, but that doesn't make sense because nothing bad happened. So why are you still upset about it? Thanks. That's not them trying to be insensitive. They're fixing it through thinking, logic. This is how they do it for themselves. Whereas if you've got someone who's more emotional, who's like,
Mhm.
ah, and catastrophizing and feeling all of it, right? And just, in those moments, it's going to push the thinker away because they're like, oh, I don't know what this is. And I don't want to touch my own. So I'm going to pull away. This is a personality difference. The
Mhm.
more you start to learn how to communicate with each other the way that you need to, and how I always describe this as like, it's like the thinker speaks Chinese and the feeler speaks French. You wouldn't speak French to the Chinese person expecting them to figure it out. You would learn some Chinese. so
Mm-hmm.
that even if it's got some French in it, like there's enough keywords that they're getting the gist of it,
Mm-hmm.
and vice versa.
Right.
That's what it's like for the thinker or feeler. So when
Mm-hmm.
a feeler comes in a session when I'm working with a couple, they always say like, Katie, you're the great translator. And I'm like, I just know how to speak both languages and you can learn it too. It's just like learning a language.
Mm-hmm.
You hear them, like, well, I think and logically, and you just hear these very practical matter of fact. And so I will say, what I hear your partner saying is, I see that you're worried and stressed, and I see that you're scared. And I want to help you feel better by showing you and helping your brain to realize that bad thing you're scared of didn't happen. And we're okay. And here are some ways that we are okay. And don't you see that like everything is good and I'm here for you? And the partner's usually like, what? Like, I did not get that. But the thinker's usually like, yeah, that's what I'm saying. And I'm like, yeah, you think you're saying, I'm here for you. I'm supporting you. You're not alone, but you're not. What you're
Mm-hmm.
doing is giving logic to the person who's drowning in the pool, going, well, why did you jump in when you know you can't swim? Why'd you do it when you know there's no lifeguard on duty? Why'd you do it when the pool's closed after 5 p.m.? That doesn't help them. Throw them a life vest, and you throw them a life vest by acknowledging their emotions. And so this is the piece. When a person who's super emotional starts to talk, the thinker will glaze over within
Mm-hmm.
the first couple words. It's like, "Ew," and I just see it and I'm like, I've lost you.
Yeah. I've
They're
seen that
usually
look.
like, it's too much, right? They're like, I don't
Firsthand, I've seen
know.
that look.
Yeah, like I can feel the energy before the word. I know what's going to happen. I know there's nothing I can say that fix it. Whatever I say is going to make it worse. And so what I say to the emotional person is, what is it you need your partner to know? No, not feel.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm scared. Okay, can we just say that instead of the 5 paragraphs of what's scaring you and all the things, and they're not here for you and stuff? I'm scared. What exactly are you scared of? XYZ, right? They share. How do you need your partner to support you? To just listen. Okay, fair, absolutely. But do you recognize that listening means you monologue? That's not fair to anybody, right? Or to become your trash can of you just kind of word vomiting all the stuff that happened that day and how horrible it was. Nobody needs that. Like, yes, you need to process it. I get it. But you have a thinker partner. They're going to want to fix. They're going to like, you're basically tying their hands behind their back when you want to come with your stuff. No, how can this be a more partnership discussion?
Yeah.
And so teaching them how to do that, I think that's one of the biggest challenges is recognizing how to speak the two different languages. And it might be more extrovert versus introvert, right? Like there's different styles. How do we speak that language and respect each other's needs?
Mm-hmm.
And I think the other piece is that we all have different arguing styles. And the more that we can recognize, most of us have an arguing style that either wants, we want harmony, we don't know how to get it, so we're gonna like push, 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 push. This is the
Mm-hmm.
person who says, don't go to bed angry. We need to fight it out all the way to the end, like till we get to the end of this. And like, I'm like, okay, you're the pusher because you don't like when it's not harmonious.
Mm-hmm.
But by pushing your partner to talk more, it actually makes it worse. If you're the partner who runs flight, I'm gonna, leave the room, check out. I'm gonna stonewall you, even though we're in the same car together. You're thinking nobody's gonna win, so what's the point? So I'm just gonna like, if I just tune them out, eventually they'll stop. That's not helping because you want harmony too. But sweeping it under the rug is not harmonious. Like just acting like, let time pass and weeks later, then we talk and everything's fine. That
Mm-hmm.
doesn't help. And then there's the style of people pleaser. I'll just roll over and let your way be
Mm-hmm.
because I don't really have a voice and I don't feel like I can do this, right? And so if you've got that style, you're constantly hurting yourself and your partner never learns to hear your voice. So the more that we start to understand our arguing style and start to get more into the fourth style, which is really about compromise, listening, reflecting and explaining, then we can have disagreements because we're always going to,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
but way more effectively,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like way more on the same page. And we're going to better understand when it's our stuff versus our partner stuff that's getting kicked up
Mm-hmm.
and how to deal with that wise adult kind of mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is a lot, but I mean, it's work that I think you need to do absolutely for longevity of your relationship.
Yeah, yes. And the hard work isn't actually to do with our partner. It's us.
Mm-hmm.
We picked the perfect partner to bring out the stuff we've got to work on.
Mm-hmm. Push
And
all
we
the
just
buttons,
see,
yeah.
right? We push all the buttons. But the thing is we can see it more clearly in them.
Mm-hmm.
You're always this, you're never that. And we don't realize that our partner is often a mirror to us and
Mm.
the things we're unhappy in ourselves. Like the respect thing, right? Like you never show me respect. Ooh, that's a mirror to I don't show myself respect. I'm not going to bed on time. I'm not eating healthy. I'm not taking care of myself. I'm not listening when my body says stop, this is too much, or stop saying yes to people. So, ah, I'm upset at you, but I'm also really upset at myself. So the hard work is our personal growth in
Mm-hmm.
our relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And we just think it's really about the partner. Like, oh, it's them. They make it hard.
Yeah. No, I think those are terrific points and so true. I mean, I can see that. It was really tough, when my husband retired from the military. We were talking earlier, and
Hmm.
having to spend more time with each other and make more decisions collaboratively instead of like, oh, he's gone, I can just do whatever. Oh, man, that was really tough. But I'm so glad we went through that time because we figured all these things out. Like,
Yes.
so, yeah, I mean, you have to know all of those things about yourself and what you need so you can communicate that. And so, let's say a couple has done that work. They have started to understand themselves and understand their partner and what they need. And they're at the point where they're creating that shared vision and we talked about it a little bit before, but is there anything else that you would want to add on like a framework for coming together, even if you have that different personality type? How to create that shared vision? Because I see so many couples that are not on the same page of where they want to go and what they want to be and do.
Yeah.
So, yeah, tell us a little more about that.
Yeah. Yes. And again, it's because we weren't taught. We never
Right.
learned beyond, hey, we want to get married and maybe have kids and buy a house and like that's it.
Right.
We don't have that framework. One thing I think is important to mention, there's a misconception that a healthy marriage is always happy and
Yeah.
it's always easy.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, we need to think in the terms of a healthy marriage has closeness,
Mm-hmm.
then disconnection. Something triggers us. We're tired that day,
Mm-hmm.
something they said, something did, whatever, right? Disconnection. And then a period of repair.
Mm-hmm.
And what all couples should be focused on is learning more and more tools of how to repair after that disconnection time,
Mm-hmm.
whether it be a disagreement, whether it be, just feeling like I'm not appreciated or I'm not prioritized or whatever. And so as you work on what your vision is for the future, you also need to work on the fact that, oh, part of that vision is we're going to go through times of disconnection. That's normal. How do we repair and get back to closeness and connection?
Mm-hmm.
And those repair tools are unique to every couple. I mean, the Gottmans. I love Dr. John Gottman and Julie Gottman and what they teach, and I've done some of their certification trainings because I love their framework. But they'll say it can be something as simple as, "Would you like a glass of water?" in the middle of an argument. That's a repair, or a reaching out to hold hands, of going like, "Look, honey, what I'm trying to say is." That's a repair. The issue is, as the partner, are you seeing when your partner does these things? Are you seeing when they kind of make light of a situation, try to make you laugh? Are you seeing how pissed off you are because they're not taking it seriously? So when we have these moments of repair, we have to train ourselves to see them more. And then you really start to create more of that harmony, right? That
Hmm.
connection where the vision starts to become a reality. So if there's a next step tool, it's start to learn more repairs. You learn more about yourself. You're starting to get more on the like, okay, this is what I want. This is what I want. Let's learn how to repair because you're going to have some really difficult conversations about what you want for the future.
Hmm.
And it might be different. And the more you learn how to repair after those disagreements, the more you'll go back to those difficult conversations rather than avoid them. Because we avoid it when we think, it's going to end badly. We know how it will end. Now, here's a big challenge that many couples face. It's around things like where are we going to retire? Who's going to do this or that? Like, uh, who's going to take care of my parents? Or whose responsibility is this? Or how long will the kids be allowed to live with us? Or, all these different things, right? And we have these different visions. And one of you probably has more dreams than the other, even if you're both high achievers, in the category of your relationship and your family. That happens. It's okay. And I'm not going to say it's more female male because it really just depends on the couple. But I think the important thing is you go back to, and I teach a framework with the couples I work with, which is your value systems as a couple. What are your deep core values as a couple? And you make decisions based on that. So, for example, my husband and I were at sort of a crossroads where we kept avoiding a conversation about what we wanted to do with a home that we had inherited when his grandmother passed away, which was like, wow, this is a blessing, right? But it's also a responsibility. And we have three kids, 10, 8, and 4. And we're, living life. We're both entrepreneurs. Like, great that there's this second home, but do we really want this project? And so we had to go back to our core values. And one of our values we differ in the definition of. So we had to have that discussion. We both love freedom. Entrepreneurs love freedom. Freedom. For him, freedom's about financial, being able to have options and choice because of financial freedom. Mine is freedom around choice in general. Sometimes money holds you back from that, right? Like, well, I have to keep this job so then I can pay these things and have freedom. For me, I like freedom in my calendar. I like freedom to choose next year what I want, not today for the year or two in front of me. I like that fluidity and I love options. So that's my freedom. So this wonderful home that we're so grateful we inherited, for him, it was like, what's the financial responsibility to it? And also, what does it save us? Because vacations would be different, right? We go to this home. For me, it was, do we have to retire there? Are we going to be stuck there? Is this going to be a house we always have to be at? Like, I felt trapped. Once we were able to understand that, it's a very different conversation. We're not avoiding it anymore because I'm able to become emotional and say, I don't want to be trapped feeling like I have to retire in this place because we have this home that gifted this home. And because you think financial freedom, and you're like, great, it's already paid for. We have this home. And I'm like, no, I want to go do XYZ, or I don't know. I'm not at that age yet to want to go do anything. Then we had a very different conversation
Hmm.
about what we want for our future that we hadn't thought we needed to talk about yet.
Yeah.
And then we could make a much more educated decision because it was based on our values. And I'll be honest, sometimes when you look at, and I usually say pick three because if you pick too many, it's like, you get this laundry list of values on websites and you're like, well, all of them apply to us. Like, no, pick three, your core ones. They're going to be difficult decisions you have to make still. You're not going to like making them because not everybody's going to like your answers.
Hmm.
When you say no to particular things, because it doesn't align with your core values, but it would just be so much easier to say yes, or to say yes to something that you know is more of a long-term gain than a short-term gain. And those things can be difficult, but when you as a couple understand your why, it's much easier to make those difficult decisions. But you have to get on the same page about what your core values are.
Hmm. But it's so true. I love that you've given us that framework because so many difficult decisions come up in marriage.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
having a partner, it happens, and it's great
Yeah.
to be able to take the emotion out of it and really focus on what truly is the issue at heart that you're really
Yeah.
truly worried about. So I think that's wonderful. I will definitely file that away. What I love about everything that you've talked about today, and your focus and my focus is so connected, because we do it both to create stronger families. Because when we
Yep.
have stronger relationships, that's what comes of it. Our kids see that. They learn how to build strong relationships. We're all happier. Our businesses thrive when we're happier and our relationships are strong. And it's just this
Yep.
wonderful repeating cycle. So, for any mom who's listening today who is just really kind of struggling in her relationships, what's one or a few tips that you would want to give them to begin to take those small steps towards creating more connected partnerships?
Yeah. That feels like such a tall order, right? Like,
Yeah.
gosh, because when you think about it, relationships have a legacy to them, right? Our children are
Mhm.
watching how we interact. Others are watching how we interact, right? We all are friends with people who are like, oh, they're the perfect couple, or oh, look at them, right? Like it's always leaving a bit of a legacy. So, I think the first steps is really more about self-reflection
Mm.
and you really taking the time to better understand yourself because it's so much easier to point the finger at our partner and to see where they're lacking. And one of the most difficult conversations I had with my husband in the past 2 years was a conversation around how I felt like I had sacrificed so much moving to Germany and changing so much. And what is it he felt like he had sacrificed to that level? And his answers really threw me. It wasn't what I had thought. So sometimes when we do self-reflection, we're not going to even get to the core of the stuff until we actually ask the questions. And we need to be ready for the difficult answers. We need to be ready for the things we didn't expect. Because often our partner's not telling us those things because they don't want to hurt us,
Mm.
reasonably so, right? And that's often why, we're careful with how much we do say. Um, but first start with self-reflection, and when you're ready, ask for feedback from your partner.
Mm.
Not to so you can turn around on them. Well, I wouldn't be like this if you were this. Really sit in that wise adult and that pissed off teenager gets back behind the back seat, like not in the front and driving in donuts or hitting a wall, and just better understand you
Mhm.
because you are half of the context. And we will always think that we're doing so many wonderful things and look at all the work I have to do and all the stuff I have to take care of. And you get the king size bed at the Hilton and a filet mignon every night because I sacrifice all of these things. And we don't think about them as often. So do that work. I think that is like I get chills just thinking about it. That is some of the biggest like ways to pivot things in your relationship is when you really know yourself. And it's often why women will come to work with me because they're like, my partner will never do this work with you. And they're never going to work on the relationship. And I go, that's okay. Because if I can help change 50% of the relationship,
Mhm.
the other 50 shifts. It absolutely does. There's no way not to. And
Mhm.
so if I can get one half to better understand themselves, to see their triggers, why their triggers, what age of kid is driving the car right now in this moment, and to get them to shift that, it's a game changer. It
Yeah.
really does. And I've worked with enough, I mean, it's 15 years of working with people and being able to see you don't need both people in the room. And I always say
Mm.
therapy isn't for everyone. I get it. Therapy isn't for everyone. But learning relationship skills is. So it's
Yeah.
just about the way you go about it.
Right.
And people take it in different ways. You can read a book, you can listen to a podcast, you can do work with someone like me and actually get tailored skills for you and
Mhm.
then accountability to use it. And I think that is so key. So get a journal, warm cup of tea, light a candle, and just be like, let me figure out me a little bit more. And
Mhm.
what do I want? And if you're in that stage of do I stay or do I go? And like, am I really happy? Don't be afraid of those questions. Because really the question is, am I happy as me in the context of this relationship? And what would I like to do differently?
Mm-hmm.
How would I like to show up differently in my life? Am I happy in my business? Is
Mm-hmm.
that, feel like I'm stagnant in it, which is making me angry at my partner because I don't feel supported by them and like whatever spiral. But you won't know till you
Mm-hmm.
stop and reflect on yourself.
Yeah, and as you alluded to just now, getting to know yourself, I think it's the biggest thing you can do as an entrepreneur as well. And
Yes.
it will it will impact all your relationships and positively affect your business
Yep.
when you start doing this work. So don't just see it as relationship work. And I love that you mentioned, if you don't think your partner is gonna do this work with you, the 50% work is just as important. Don't let that hold you back from doing your own work because the benefits of that.
Oh, completely. I had a mentor once say, I was finally, determined that I would be the partner I wanted to be, not based off of how
Mm,
they were being to me, but who I wanted to be, so that if I needed to step away from this relationship, what I was bringing to that next relationship or just to myself would
mhm,
be exactly who I am and not a version of me that had to be watered down or
mhm.
shifted or changed because of the dynamics that were happening in my relationship. And I remember hearing that and being like, bingo, that's it. When we get in our own lane and we focus on the car we're driving, who's driving it, the journey is a lot easier.
Yeah.
Whether we go straight with them or we detour off and go, nope, it's not with them anymore.
Hmm. I love that so much. Katie, you've given us so much to think about and just to mentally chew on and really just marinate in. So thank you so much for that wisdom and your insight and helping so many people over 15 years and doing your own work. I mean, that just allows you to share so much too. If listeners want to connect with you and learn more and check out your resources, where can they do that?
Yeah, I'd love for you to find me on Instagram. It's at katie.rustler. On there, you're going to find a lot of the tips and things I've already told you today, which will help remind you and keep you going with those things. And then my website is katierustler.com. You'll find my books on there, as well as what programs and workshops. Almost every month, I have a new workshop coming out to teach practical tools. And then if you want to learn from me through the podcast, it's called Relationship Reset. And weekly, I have a little 12-minute audio that teaches you something you can start working on in your relationship immediately.
I love that. It's so great. We can just, and it's not a one and done. It's something that we continue to need to do as our relationships evolve, as we evolve. So it's ongoing work. So
Yep.
thank you so much for sharing your time, and having that resource is just invaluable. So thank you so much, Katie.
Thank you, Angela.
Yeah, it's been great.